Okay, something's happening.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Casey. This is Coach Tom. This is Shot Science Overtime number 129. We're going to do what we talk about most every week is we have a topic that we give you guys that we hope is going to be helpful and will be something that will help you grow your game. And while we're doing that, you guys are going to send us questions that we can answer after, and we will do our best to give you the best answer to help you develop your game. We're trying some new stuff out here in terms of broadcasting you guys, so hopefully it's working for you. Just let us know if there's any problems, and we'll try to fix it next time. So let's get into our topic today. Actually, before we get into the topic, if you want to send us questions, we're trying out this live chat thing here. So if you have questions, try to get that on the live chat on the YouTube stream. We also will take any Twitter questions. That's a great way to get a hold of us. We are at Shot Science on Twitter, and you can follow us on all of our social media sites. So anything is going to be Shot Science, but Facebook, Google+, let's see, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. We're on most everything. And make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. But our topic today is going to be how to have a consistent shot. And we get that question quite often from people that just they are struggling with making their shot work for them consistently across time. Usually it's like maybe they'll shoot really great one day, and then the next day they're shooting crappy or whatever. It's just a lot of ups and downs. They can't really figure out why. So let's jump into kind of reasoning why that might be happening, and then we'll talk about how we can fix that.
Sure.
So why might that be happening?
That very possibly can be happening because we kind of lose track of our shooting mechanics when we're shooting. One of the things that we like to do is to have all of our players, when they are in instruction situations, is to take and shoot what we call the form shooting drill. We mention that on a regular basis here, and you can find that on our YouTube channel. But the form shooting drill is really essential for establishing and maintaining good shooting mechanics. And one of the things that happens is that we oftentimes, when we just go shoot around, we kind of lose that synchronization of our shot mechanics, and the shot starts to go a little wonky on us. And so if we take and do that on an everyday basis, what you find is that you tend to keep that the shooting mechanics sharp, and you don't tend to have so many of those situations where it kind of breaks down. The kind of things that break down often are these kind of things, is that we don't have a very good arc on the shot when we shoot it. And I know that I had students this morning, and 4 or 5 of them, and the problem with most all of them was this, is that when they shoot, they don't really have a shooting machine that has nets cascaded around it, and so they shoot the ball flat. And then they come here, and we're trying to encourage them to get more shots, arc on the shot. And we have the screen up in front of them, and their shots are really kind of inconsistent. Sometimes they're short, sometimes they're long. And so those are things that you should do on a daily basis. If you don't have that screen in front of you, you have to imagine that it's there and make sure that you get the nice arc, and imagine that you're getting the nice follow through off the first 2 fingers. That's all real important stuff when you're shooting. Some other things on consistent shooting I think it really helps too is that when you are working on all of these skills, be very aware of what's going on. One of the things that corrupts our shot an awful lot is our offhand. And this is something that was happening with several of the people this morning, is that when they shoot, what happens is that so-called guide hand tends to get involved in the shot. If this is our shooting hand and this is our guide hand, what happens is that guide hand, or we call it the assist hand, tends to want to help the shot. And so usually it's with a little flick of that thumb at the release, and it causes the ball to be pushed sideways. It's on its way to the basket. The other thing is it tends to cause kind of sideways rotation on the ball as it's going toward the basket. So in developing a consistent shot, it's really important that we get that other hand off the basketball a moment before we release it. Now, if we're going up for the shot, this hand really, I'm trying to get this on backwards here, but I guess, is that this hand will pull away. You'll see that a lot, really good shooters. You get right here, and that hand pulls away, and they finish it with a one-handed stroke. And we feel like that's really the best way to get rid of the ball and release it for a consistent shot.
Yeah, and one thing too about consistency is that it's hard to be consistent when you have a really complex shooting mechanics.
Exactly.
If you go in there and you have lots of hitches and ups and downs and sticking points, or things change as you move away from the basket, or they change depending on where you are on the floor, that can be a real problem in recreating that motion every single time.
Right.
So you want to really work towards having this shooting mechanic motion that is super efficient, and it is essentially the same no matter where you are on the floor.
Yeah.
Because if you're making adjustments or you're doing different things at different times, that's going to make it way harder to make it consistent.
Right. And one of the ways to build that, of course, is if you go to our form shooting drill, you'll see that the strokes are really short. They're probably between 7 and 11 feet. And we just really work on that. Now, one of the things you have to remember is that your shots probably are going to be longer than that in the game. And so you start off at those distances, and then you take and move back a little bit until you get yourself back near the 3-point line or at the 3-point line, with all of the elements of your shot being still consistent. When you move away from the basket, of course, you're going to have to make sure that you've got more legs involved, because that's our power source. And so that's an important add to our consistent shooting as we move out to and beyond the 3-point shooting line.
Yeah, and I think one of the major keys too that people need to realize is that to be consistent when you are executing, you need to be consistent in your practice.
Right.
Because consistent practice will help you put polish on all that stuff. And if you are just going out there every time and it's like you've had like this 4 or 5 day layoff and you haven't been working on your shot any time leading up to that, it's going to be hard to get back to the point where you feel comfortable and it feels good and normal and like you've been there.
Yeah.
It's just like anything. If you take time off, you're going to get a little rusty and things are not going to be kind of in the place that they need to be. But if you are constantly and consistently addressing every one of those actions that you are trying to pull up when you're doing anything that's skilled, relies on skills, then you need to be consistent about the practice of it too.
Yeah, one of the things that happens is that I think with young people, they feel like I'll just go shoot around and I'll work on my form while I'm just shooting around. And really what happens there is the shot becomes very corrupted, because you forget about these other things that come into play when you are not worrying about them. We need to take and have a very deep mental kind of a connection with what it is that we're doing on the stroke to make it effective. And if we just go out and shoot around, that's not going to be very good for us. And so we really try to encourage players to get into a daily repetition of the form shooting drill. In fact, we had a shooting clinic about a week ago, and that's something that we hammered on very, very solidly for 2 hours, is the fact that these are the shooting mechanics, and you need to be able to spend time on those shooting mechanics with the form shooting drill. And that's where you kind of develop that shot. So that's an important part of being consistent as well, is taking and building the shot and making sure that it is consistent with form shooting drills every day. It doesn't have to be for more than about 10 minutes, but every day you're working on that form shooting.
Yeah, and it's not just the form shooting too, because you got to go out there and once you've got that all polished and dialed in and feel good about that, you also have to do the game speed, game intensity stuff, because that's going to really lend to making you feel like you've been out on the court.
Right.
And going through the form shooting drill and everything is great, and you need to do that. But that's about getting everything into the place that it needs to be.
Yeah.
The real application of it is kind of working on the game speed, game intensity stuff.
Exactly.
Because when you're out on the court and you got a defender and you got your teammates and maybe a crowd or whatever in the throes of the game, it's not going to be like how it felt when you were doing the form shooting drill.
Yeah, very true.
It's going to be, a different kind of intensity, a different kind of look. So you have to recreate that in your practice too. And that's how you do it, is through the game speed, game intensity stuff.
Sure.
And so we always talk about the 3 pillars of practice, and that's kind of what the 3 pillars are. The first being kind of the dialing in, mastering the mechanics and all that stuff, using the form shooting drill. Pillar 2 would be game speed, game intensity stuff, really working on catching off the pass, off the dribble, adding in the defender, hitting different spots on the floor, whatever that may be.
Right.
And then also, then the third pillar would be game experience, actually getting into a game and applying all that stuff. And that can be applied to anything, not just shooting. It can be dribbling, ball handling stuff.
Ball skills.
It could be
important,
defense. It could be, pretty much any post up moves, attacking off the perimeter. Any of that stuff is going to be 3-pillar of practice approved.
Right.
And you just got to use it for anything.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that kind of covers most of the thoughts on having a consistent shot, but really the key of all that is have an efficient shot, efficient shooting mechanics.
Yep.
Because that's going to make life easier on you, and it's going to make it so that your accuracy will be higher.
Yeah. Well, here's an important question that goes along with
All right.
that. How do you know whether you have consistent stroke mechanics or not? How do you know that? Well, you have to find a source for that, a resource for that. And if you find that it's one that you feel really comfortable with, then that's one that you want to take and stay with. You know, there's a lot of different things that are going on out there, and you see a lot of them on the internet. You have to pick out what's going to work for you. And then once you kind of have that, then you want to work on the elements of those elements to make your shot more effective.
And I will say this too about that. And you're talking about in terms of where you kind of get your information and things like that. I think that for anybody, and this is a very personal thing, you got to look at it yourself and see what makes sense to you.
Sure.
But I would say make sure that it all makes logical sense.
Absolutely.
Make sure that you're not just going off of an edited video of all these, things that hold up to whatever that theory might be, because you can edit something to make it look the way that you want it to. Make sure you're looking at it and it makes sense in your brain logically.
Yep.
All the physics are in place, all the biomechanics are in place, and it just makes sense. Then, you got to start from the bottom. Start building up using your fundamentals. Fundamentals are the key to all this, because you don't want to go in saying, I want to shoot just like Kevin Durant, or I want to shoot just like Ray Allen or whoever, because the worst thing you can do is try to develop your mechanics off of somebody else, because you are not going to have the same biomechanics, biophysics,
Athleticism.
body proportions or anything as anybody else really. And especially those guys that are like in the NBA, because they're going to have freakish proportions. They're going to be able to have incredible athleticism, whatever it may be. The best way to have the best shooting mechanics possible is to start with the fundamentals. And most of those guys do too. It's just that it develops along with their body proportions and their biomechanics and stuff. So you want to do the same thing. Get ahead of the curve. Start with your fundamentals. Build off of that. And the thing is that trying to shoot like somebody else is not really the end goal. The end goal is putting the ball in the basket.
Yeah, and in the reality, our body mechanics are different. As human beings, my mechanics are probably different than Casey's are, and Casey's are going to be different from somebody else. But the general gist of all of that is that they're going to be similar, and that's what you're really looking for. For me to just take and go practice, and I want to practice just like Casey, doesn't make very much sense, because maybe my size, my age, my proportions, my strength, all that kind of thing is going to make me different than him. And so I need to find something that is going to work for me within these bounds of what good mechanics are.
Start with the good building blocks,
Yeah.
and build up from there. Don't try to take the building and move it over on top of your foundation.
Yeah, right.
So I mean those are the kind of key things.
Yeah.
So back to it again, we'll just sum it up. To have a consistent shot, you must have consistent, efficient shooting mechanics.
Exactly.
That are repeatable, because repeatability lends to accuracy, and accuracy lends to actual making the ball in the basket.
Well, and develops the muscle memory that you want to be able to execute that over and over and over exactly the same way.
Yes, and then consistent practice.
Yep.
Because if you go and put all your shooting practice in on Sunday, and then you have a game on Friday, good luck having it trying to be there and actually working for you.
Yeah.
You have to put in the work every day. Just vary what you do. Keep it interesting. Make sure that you're addressing the first two pillars, and then you'll be ready to apply the third pillar, and then you'll be in good shape.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're going to cut off our chat on having a consistent shot there. If you guys have more questions on that, be sure to hit us up here in the chat today, or you can hit us up on Twitter or somewhere, and we will get back to you. Just remember, we are at Shot Science on everything, and so you can reach us across the internet on anything shot science. Okay. Hopefully you guys have been sending in your questions. I'm going to check out the chat here. Looks like we have a bunch. Let's see. This one is from LOL Player 232. Says, "How do you get over choking during a game?"
Choking or lack of confidence or whatever.
Choking is also a perceived thing, too.
It is. It is.
You're always going to be much harder on yourself than anybody else.
Yeah, and this idea of choking really is it identifies the fact that you are making mistakes, or you have made a mistake, or you're going to make a mistake. And you know what? Everybody that plays this game of basketball makes mistakes, some way more than others. And the ones that make more mistakes than some of the others has to do with the fact that you are not afraid. Because often when we are afraid of mistakes that we might make, we're going to make those mistakes. And then that compounds itself. Then we start to fall into a funk and, oh, we're not very good. And therefore, I don't want to shoot anymore. I'm going to give the ball to everybody else. And so you quit participating in the game because of your fear of failure. Well, the thing I think is really important is you're on the floor and you're on there to play. Go ahead and play. And remember this, that if you have a mistake or two, it's not the end of the world. Now, somebody could say, well, yeah, but if I miss the last shot and we lose the game, then I'm going to feel horrible. Well, if you make that last shot, somebody on the other team probably is going to feel horrible too. But that's just the way the game goes. You can't let it kind of eat inside of you like that. You just got to let it go and take the game as it comes. And what you're going to find as you begin to relax more is that you're going to make fewer mistakes, fewer poor decisions.
Yeah, and you really have to have this mental switch in your head where you turn off this critical voice that is always telling you you're doing stuff wrong, and the next time down the court it's going to be the same thing or whatever. You really have to be a player in the present. The guys and you see these guys all the time, they typically don't make it up to the next levels of basketball, but you see these guys in the middle school and high school and youth league games, sometimes in the AAU, but these are the guys and girls that are just, they pout and they lose their mind as soon as something goes wrong. And what happens if you do that, you're not playing in the present. You're thinking about the thing that happened in the past, which you have no control over. That's already done deal.
That was yesterday.
And then you are contaminating what's going to happen down the floor the next time in the present. So you need to let go of all that stuff. You need to play with just in the present moment. That next possession that you have the ball, that's where you really need to put your efforts into, and don't worry about anything else. And like you were saying, all players make mistakes.
Oh yeah.
I will guarantee you that somebody like Michael Jordan has made so many more mistakes than you could ever even hope to in basketball, but he is still the greatest player of all time.
Oh yeah.
And
he would be the first one to admit to the fact that he made lots of mistakes.
Yeah, and he even has famous quotes about it. But the thing is that he was able to let go of it because he knew that it was either a learning opportunity, or he knew that it was no big deal. Next time down the floor, he's going to make it happen.
Yeah. I noticed several of the same comments here that kind of follow along that line. And one of the things that is mentioned here is, how do I get over it mentally? Hey, here's the thing you have to learn how to do. Get over it immediately, because once it's happened, it's yesterday's news. It has no real importance on what you're going to do in the future, because you may make some more mistakes, but because of that mistake, you may do a better job by accepting the fact that it's not going to bother you.
Yeah,
as soon as you start going up and down the court worrying about, oh, I missed that last shot, and you're going to be your own worst enemy. Thing is, drop it, let go, and let's go.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too, is that people ask those kind of questions, and I know that they want like a specific thing that we can tell them to do, like take this blue pill, or move your arm like this. We are very sorry, but that is not how that kind of change occurs. No. That is one where you really need to sit with yourself, mentally flick the switch, let it go, have confidence, work on living in the present, and just don't take it so seriously. And you will really see yourself become a new kind of player.
Yeah. And if you've got things that you continue to fall down on consistently, then that is the call right there for you to get busy and fix that skill. or develop that skill so that it's no longer a problem
Yeah,
for you.
yeah, and here's one from Tawfiq Kaylee who says, how to build confidence and not be nervous in games. That's the next step.
Yeah.
Being nervous and number one, being nervous is okay.
Yeah, everybody's
going to have
Yeah.
butterflies or whatever, but that's totally fine. How you have confidence and how you kind of drop those nerves more and more is you have to have confidence in your skills. Because if you have confidence in your skills, you will have confidence in your execution of those skills.
Exactly.
So you really have to spend the time away from the games, working consistently on putting together your abilities and your skill set and all that stuff. And then when you step out on the court, you really don't have to have those nerves, kind of peeking in on you because you feel good about where you are and the execution of what you know you can do.
Yeah, and working on those skills, what it is and what it isn't is really important for you to understand. The thing that's important is this. I had a youngster here today, and I was asking him, okay, are you working on your skills? Have you been working on your ball skills? Well, yeah, I've been working on them. Where? Well, we have open gym, and what do you do in the open gym? Well, we play. And I said, well, understand this. When you're playing in a game, you are not working on your skills. You're utilizing what you have there, and that's not going to be much of an answer for you. So what you really need to do is take yourself out of that particular atmosphere and get yourself into a one-on-one kind of situation with yourself where you work on your ball skills, you work on your shooting skills, you work on your foot speed and footwork skills. And then you go to the game. I mean, that's what we were talking about a while ago when we're talking about the 3 pillars, is that you work on all this stuff, then you take it to the game. Don't take it to the game and expect you're going to build your skills there, but because it is not going to happen for you.
And that's one of those kind of recent talking points about AAU basketball and traveling basketball is that so many players spend so much time playing games, but they don't spend much time working on their individual skills.
Right.
And you can kind of see that when you look at basketball these days, and there's a lot of guys and girls that are very capable athletically and kind of know where they need to be on the floor, but then you ask them to shoot a shot or you ask them to play defense or whatever, and they can't do it, or they're not to the level that you would expect.
Yeah.
So you have to spend time individually working by yourself and really dialing in all those skills.
Right.
It is essential. And the guys that go on to the next level, they're the ones that have spent the time away, and they're not just going and playing games. That, we're not diminishing playing games. That is important too. But you have to have a healthy balance of all this stuff. Otherwise, you're just going to be, kind of one type of player.
And probably not a very well-developed player, or maybe not as good as you could be.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Next one. This one is from Joaquin de los Santos, who says, trying to have less jump when shooting because it takes less. Oh, I guess he's talking to somebody else. Let's see. This one is from Bert's Burznieks, who says, how to improve your weak hand, mine is left, and make it better. That's an easy one.
It really is. And people ask that similar question almost every week. And the answer to the question is the same this week as it was last week, and it will be next week. You have to use those left hands or off hands and develop them. And it's just a matter of doing it, because when we play, especially when we just go play games, we rely on things that we can do. And we know that we can use a little in and out with our right hand, but we can't even scratch our rear end with our left hand. And so we avoid the left hand. Well, pretty soon the defense picks up on that, and pretty soon they've got you playing with a left hand. That's the only way you can go. And we improve by spending about 20 to 30 minutes a day working on your ball skills, with the biggest emphasis being on your weak hand. You'd be surprised in a week how much different your ball skills are if you just take and use that as a guideline. Every day, 20, 30 minutes, and you're just working on ball skills. And I'm not talking about these fancy ball skills. I'm talking about
fundamentals.
Just fundamental ball skills where you're pounding the basketball. You're in and out. You're 2 dribbles and then in and out. You've got figure 8. You've all the things that are basic to basketball. Now, I'm not a real proponent of a lot of these real fancy little drills that people do with the basketball. I think it improves your ball skills for certainly, but I really like to teach our players skills that are going to pertain to the game itself. And so we don't spend a lot of time on a lot of that kind of stuff, but we really work on just the things that are going to be there in the game. When you see it coming, you have to be able to back off. You have to be able to take and go through the legs. You have to be able to do this with either hand. And so you learn that just by spending time on it. And there are no easy tips other than that one. That's it.
I think that the answer to that is the answer you probably suspected, and the one that maybe you didn't want to hear, is that you just have to really work on it.
Yeah.
And it's, people always ask questions about, even shooting or layups or whatever, using the opposite hand. And the answer to those is always, you just have to use it. It is exactly the same as the other one. It's just a mirror image.
Yep.
There is no special, information to flipping it to the other side.
Nope.
It is the same exact thing. It doesn't matter if you're right, left-handed, or ambidextrous. It's all the same.
Yeah, and the simple part of this whole thing is that you will be surprised at how quickly that hand comes around when you get it involved in what you're doing with the other hand. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And like you were saying, people don't need to jump in and start doing these street ball moves and stuff like that. It's the same thing as with shooting. You need to have the fundamentals down. And even when we talked to Grayson, the professor, he was saying that you have to have the fundamentals before you start stepping into doing those other things.
Right.
And if you have those fundamentals, you can always call on them and they're always going to be there. And for us too, it's always going to be about how efficient can you be on the basketball court? It's not about showing off and getting the style points, because those don't count.
They don't count, no.
You want to be able to execute with as few movements and executions as you possibly can, and that's really the key when you're playing competitive basketball. If you're a street ball player or you're playing for entertainment purposes, that's a whole different thing. Yeah. We're talking about competitive basketball, and that's the kind of basketball that you play in middle school, high school, college, and the NBA. Right. That is not Showtime basketball. This is a different thing. So the answer is work on the fundamentals and spend the time.
Yeah, and spend the time where you're weak. If you're weak with your offhand, you want to spend time on it. Does that mean you have to spend all the time? No, it doesn't. But I would spend more time. If we were talking like in minutes, I would say that you spend 15, 20 minutes with your weak hand and then let the other one take it the rest of the time, but doing exactly the same kinds of things with them. You'll find that it's amazing how quickly you begin to pick those skills up.
And I will say, too, sometimes people get irritated with the fact that we say don't play street ball basketball or don't do these things. That we enjoy that stuff just as much as anybody else. I mean, we think that's just as, and we're friends with a lot of those people. Like Grayson is one of our good friends, and we know a lot of those guys. But the thing is that competitive basketball is different. Yeah, and if you want to excel at competitive basketball, that's kind of the way you need to look at things. Yeah. Right?
Well, we got a lot of visitors from all over the world here, Casey.
Yep. There's Kini Haku Yahoo Com from Hawaii. Hello. I saw somebody from Indonesia up there. Yeah. But here, let's get another question. This one is from the Scary Gamer. He says, "Hey, Coach, how can I hit shots when I'm cold? I have the confidence, but I can't hit any shots, and it leads me to getting taken out of the game." You got to warm up.
Yeah, exactly. This is just like anything else. If a pitcher goes out and let's say that they call him right out of the dugout and he goes right to the mound to throw, he's going to be cold. He's going to be ineffective, probably going to hit the crap out of him. And when we play basketball, that's no different. We have to warm up our body, especially the parts of the body that we're going to have working for us on that shooting stroke. And so we have to warm up. And once you warm up by taking some practice shots and stuff like that, maybe in the pregame, then you're going to be, and you're up and down the court a couple of times, your body is going to be warm, and that's going to start to be there for you. Now, if you're missing shots because you think that you're cold, maybe it's more than that. Maybe what's happening is that your shooting mechanics aren't very good and they abandon you when you get a little bit fatigued. And so if that's the case, then you need to start working in that direction as well.
Yeah. And, if you're talking about being consistent, go back and check our video out at the beginning of this video. And we talk about that too. But it's really about just being warm, getting set up, and also having consistent practice. Let's see. This one is from Fuddy, who says, "How not to shoot on left or right side of rim."
Well,
There's several reasons on that one.
yeah. You know, there are targets that have been identified for players, and they shoot for generations, decades and generations, and they usually focus on these targets: the back rim, the front rim, and some people will even say that you focus on the backboard. But I just don't happen to buy that. One of the things that happens is this: if we go out with a student or several students, to make a difference really, and we have them start shooting, and we say, okay, we will tell you right now that if you hit that target and you hit the back rim, the ball is not going to go in the basket. And they'll just kind of snicker, and so we start to shoot. Hit that back rim, comes out. Hit the front rim, comes out. Hit the back rim, and they just don't go in. What we really want to be doing when we're shooting in that situation, we want to be shooting the entire size of that basket, which is 18 inches on the inside. That's what we want to be shooting at. That's when the ball goes through that hole, that's when it counts. Okay? And it's not the fact that it hit the back rim and maybe goes in. Usually it doesn't. So that's kind of our approach on it. On the left and right side of the rim, it's pretty much the same situation. If the ball hits the rim with a flat arc, it's not going to go in most of the time.
If it's going to the left or the right, a lot of the time it's because of how you finish at the basket.
Yep.
Ooh, this is a little weird. It's backwards.
Yeah, it is.
So if you are having a problem with the ball hitting off, and you're right-handed, and the ball hitting off the right side of the rim, maybe you're supinating your wrist.
That's pronation.
Or pronating, and you're finishing out like this. If it's going the other way, you're finishing like that. You need to finish directly at the basket. If you're not finishing directly at the basket, that's not finishing directly at the target, and so you're going to be off.
Well, and the thing that we really stress with our people when we're shooting is that these two fingers want to end up right in the middle of that basket when they finish the shot. And you'd be surprised at how many of them come and that hand sweeps out to the side, or that they pronate the wrist, or they supinate the wrist the other way. I mean, but once you get that down, then the ball starts to come online. Now, something else that causes the ball to be offline is the thumb of your assist hand, or what is better known probably as the guide hand, is that when we release that basketball and this thumb helps it out, what happens is it throws the ball offline.
Right. I mean, it really is something that you need to go and videotape yourself, look at the video, and make sure you have your mechanics in place.
Yep.
And we also have a video called How to Fix Your Shot that might help you in figuring out how to kind of get everything to where it needs to be.
Exactly.
If you're missing right or left, it will give you options on why that's happening and how to fix it.
Yep.
Okay, we need a lightning round a little bit because we're getting a lot of questions. So let's be as concise as we possibly can. This is from Panda Yo, who says, "Should I warm up before a game? If yes, what do I warm up and when?" Okay, it's going to depend a lot on everybody. Typically, if you are playing for a team, the coach is probably going to have like a warm-up routine that they put you through.
Yeah, it's a structured routine that he puts everybody through to warm them up, yes.
But, what you really want to do is make sure that you're kind of getting your blood moving, kind of going through some easy motions at first. That's probably a good time to do some layups or something like that. Kind of get warm, maybe put up a few shots, and then maybe go through like some dynamic stretching.
Right.
We do not suggest doing static stretching because that's not really a good way to go about things, and you can see why in our vertical jump video. So kind of doing that, but it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah.
Let's see. This one is from Goku Uchiha, who says, "I'm a confident shooter and I shoot around 75% in practice, but around 25% in games. Why?" Okay. We have a video on that too called "Making Practice, Missing Games."
Yes.
It's a mixture of things. Number one is going to be is that when you have no real offense or no real defense playing against you, no pressures of the game, whatever, you're going to probably shoot much better than you would if you had those variables in there working against you. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that maybe you're not doing game speed, game intensity practice. So that's the second pillar that we talked about earlier, is that when you are practicing, you have to have all three pillars of practice. And the first being the slow down, dialing in, form shooting drill. The second being the game speed, game intensity, and third being actual game experience.
Right.
If you are not doing the game speed, game intensity practice, then when you step out on the basketball court, it's like you have never been there before.
Yeah.
And you haven't prepared yourself for that experience.
Right. Just
So,
the speed of the game puts you at a disadvantage if you haven't practiced that.
yeah, so go check out our make and practice missing games video, and we explain that in full detail.
Right.
Lamont Shandy says, should I practice half-court shots? No.
Don't waste your time.
Christian Burrell says, one motion shot like Stephen Curry in your own words. Okay, well, when people say one motion shot or two motion shot or whatever, that's kind of a lame explanation of things. Here is what is extremely important about shooting is that, and this is our mantra, is that your shooting mechanics need to be as efficient as possible. So that means cutting out all the extra variables, all the extra junk that you don't need. And when people are talking about one motion shot or two motion shot, a two motion shot is something where, to our understanding, is where you are having a sticking point or a stopping point of your upward momentum. And
usually it's when you get your legs extended and there's a hesitation point right there.
Yeah, or you're bringing the ball back or whatever it is. That is not the way to go about things, because if you are doing that, you are losing power at every moment that you have one of those sticking points or stopping points. And that really defeats the purpose of going through and having a really efficient, footwork and all that stuff leading into the shot. So you need to cut those sticking and stopping points out. And what Stephen Curry does is that his is a fluid, connected shot all the way from feet to finish.
Yep.
And the reason that he is able to get it off so quick is because he doesn't have any of those little hitches or sticking points or dips or whatever. And you really need to work towards that as your model of shooting.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So throw out the notion of one motion shot and connect and two motion shot and work more on having an efficient, connected, fluid shooting mechanic.
Exactly.
And you will be in good shape. Let's see. This is from Brian Mello, who says, tips for being an undersized big man. That's easy. Develop all of those skills and moves and make sure that you have at least 2 to 3 solid post moves.
Exactly.
And then have counters off of all those.
Yeah.
And you will be in great shape.
Yeah.
Because you'll be able to bait those big guys into doing things that they don't necessarily want to do, and you'll have a response to whatever look they give you.
Right. And the other thing that you have to remember is you'll probably be quicker than them. If they're bigger, and you'll probably be a little bit more quick in execution of the moves to the basket, and be sure to take advantage of that. That's real important.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if you have a counter move to something, like let's say you have a little jump hook that you're going to pound the ball, go into a jump hook in the middle of the key, and he sees that and you do that, maybe you're successful with it 1 or 2 times, then you can throw in a counter like something like the up and under, and he's going to bite on the fake like it's going to be that jump hook, and you're just going to step through and have a little layup.
Yeah, exactly.
And if he doesn't go for it, you just continue on with the jump hook. I mean, it's really one of those situations where you need to have the tools in your tool bag and have a response for everything that they show you. Let's see. A lot of comments about people not having confidence in games and stuff and being afraid of making a fool of themselves. And we talked about that earlier, and that's really about developing your confidence. So go back and check out our talk about that. This one is from 06070, who says, does it affect your skills if you do not train regularly? Yes.
Yep.
You have to be consistent.
They begin to degrade if you don't use them.
You have to have consistent practice if you want to have consistent execution.
Right.
Joel Damon says, what's a better shot, to do the finger roll or a plain layup?
Well,
it
kind of depends.
Depends on your definition too.
Yeah, it really does. A finger roll, we actually encourage players on layups to use the underhand layup. Which is kind of a finger roll thing. You're probably talking about finger roll right over the front rim. Well, we don't teach the finger roll over the front rim because we don't think it's a very effective shot. It's really a tough one to get in the basket. Oftentimes what it does, we get it up over the front rim, hits the back rim and comes right back out again. So it takes a lot of time to get that touch on that.
Well, it's just iffy because you don't really have a good solid target.
Yeah, and in fact, we really encourage everybody who's shooting layups to use the backboard. You use the backboard.
We talk about that in our video called
Yep.
"Never Miss Layups Again"
Yep.
or something
Yep.
like that. And the fact of the matter is that you need to put the ball off the back of the backboard. You need to use the underhand lay-in.
Yep.
And the other thing too is that I know we talked about this before, is that if you're trying to come in and do like an overhand layup and you have like the defender like right here, you don't get as much reach as you do if you have the ball like this and you're doing an underhand, because you can reach out with it. And so you're creating a little bit of space between you and the defender, as well as kind of getting a more, I guess it's
a softer shot.
Softer shot. You can take more off the ball, but you can also get more reach too, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Let's see. This one is from Joaquin de los Santos, who says, I'm at the point where my form is changing a bit. What is the easiest way and the most comfortable way to change it?
Well, you find out the shooting mechanics that you want to use, and you get started, and you work on it every day. I have a student who's struggling because she can't connect her legs to the shot, and so she'll take and stand up, and then the arms will go, and she has real difficulty with that. How much did you work on this week? Well, I worked on it a couple days. For how long? Oh, probably 20 minutes. So and the upshot of it is she spent 40 minutes maybe working on this when she should have been doing it for half an hour every day.
Got to prioritize.
Yeah, you got to prioritize what it is you want to get done, and in order to be effective. I mean, that's just the basis of it.
I think the other thing too is that you need to slow everything way down, break it way down, use the form shooting drill, and build upon kind of your little alterations of your shot. If you pull everything back, if you're trying to go in and you're trying to have game speed, game intensity shooting, and you haven't put in the work on the first pillar, good luck trying to get that to actually work for you. So pull everything back and work on that first, and then kind of progress. That's really how you want to work on that. Okay, let's see. This one is from Devin McLeese, who says, what can I set up my shots and get open in games? Or how can I set up my shots and get open in games?
We have a video on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of videos that we put together on that, and that's really just learning how to move without the ball. We have stuff like the V cut and the L cut and the backdoor cut, and those are all moving without the ball. And then there's things you can do with the ball, like a bunch of our dribble attacks. You can go look at the dribble attack series. You can look at the video called The Hammer. You can look at the video called The Diamond. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. And a lot of them are about creating leads. Some of them are about just baiting the defender and getting them to think you're going one way, but then you go the other. So I would suggest that you go look at our offensive moves playlist. And if you want to get real specific about it, you can go look at the dribble attack playlist. You can also go look at the moving without the ball playlist. Right?
Yep.
Let's see here. Joel Damon asks, can athleticism beat skill? Sometimes, but if you really have the skills, you can beat most people athletically.
Yeah.
That's why you'll have people like Steve Nash, even Stephen Curry. He's not as athletic as most of those guys out there, but he still has the skills and the experience to execute in ways that really kind of nullifies their athleticism.
Really, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can actually develop skills to beat athleticism. Edison Scutari says, does rotation matter? Yes.
Yes, it does. Too much rotation matters a whole lot. And I'm not going to go into a discussion on that, but I'm going to give you a video to go see. Go check and see about, what's the name of that on the rotation, Casey?
Is it about the follow-through finish?
The flop finish.
Finger flop finish?
Yeah, the flop finish. And it talks about rotation and how much that we recommend and what the effects are and what too much rotation does to your shot.
Right, and the thing about rotation is that it stabilizes the flight of the ball.
Yep.
But for us, one of the most important things is how much rotation do you put on it.
Exactly.
If you put too much on it, the ball is going to be too live, and when it hits the intended target, which is sometimes the rim or the backboard,
right,
it's going to expend too much energy and just go flinging off of it. We don't want that. No. What we want is there to be a gentle rotation. And as the ball hits the rim or the backboard or whatever, that rotation is going to make the ball stick and kind of go up instead of out. And if it does that, it gives the ball a second chance at going in,
Right.
which is really what you want. They call that shooter's touch or shooter's roll or whatever. And so we want a nice gentle rotation, not super fast, and we don't want any knuckleballs.
Yeah.
There's the Goldilocks rule when it comes to that one, I think. Okay, this one is from Dylan Mackilt. I don't know what that is. Dylan. He says, "What is the key for making free throws?" The key for making free throws is, again, super efficient shooting mechanics, consistent practice, and
Establishing a rhythm.
establishing
as
a
well.
rhythm.
And most people don't think too much about it, but we think breathing makes a lot of difference. Free throws are often shot when you're a little bit gassed. And so you walk to free throw, and we encourage all of our people to do this. Have a routine, which most people do. And while that routine is while you're working on that, then make sure that you take a deep, deep breath and then blow about half out. And then just before you shoot, take a little short breath and let's go. You don't want to spend too much time. I've watched free throw shooting for 100 years, and what I've found out is this. People who spend too much time in preparation for the shot usually miss them.
Again, efficiency comes into play.
Yep.
If your routine is too wacky and too much, parading and all that stuff, that's not going to work for you. If you spend too much time standing there, you're going to ice yourself.
Yep.
So you got to kind of move around, make sure that you get your rhythm established. 1 or 2 maybe 1 to 3 dribbles,
And let's go.
let's go. Because if you spend too much time doing the ceremony and all that, then it's going to be something that's hard to recreate, and if you don't do it correctly, then it's going to affect your thinking. So you need to make it super efficient, and then obviously consistent practice is going to help you the most. Lamont Shandy was saying something about Coach Chase always make layups. Yes, that's a video we were talking about. Let's see, Suave Boy, it says, how do I improve my speed with the ball? You have to do the practice, and then you have to up your speed and intensity as you do it, as you master it. Let's see. This one's from Julian, who says, when I shoot consistent, my feet turn away from the basket. How do I prevent this from happening?
Well, actually, we like to have a staggered stance.
Slight stagger.
And the feet will turn away from the basket a little bit. Just don't turn them too far.
Before you start your shot. This is your shooting stance.
Yes,
should be
exactly.
slightly
It has
staggered.
nothing to do as when you jump or anything. What you want to do is just kind of turn your shooting foot, the one that is your same as your shooting hand, turn it just a little bit toward the opposite direction. The other foot will take a position relative to that, and that's a good way to go. One of the reasons that we like that is that brings forward your shooting shoulder when you shoot, and we like to have the shooting shoulder a little ahead of the other shoulder when we shoot it.
All right, we're going to take 2 to 3 quick questions, and then we'll be out of here. But this first one is from Marlon Johnson, who says, should basketball players wear knee pads? I mean, if you want to, that's a personal preference. You see it and you don't see it.
Yeah.
Let's see. This one is from Goku Uchiha, who says, I'm a coach too for under 16s, and we're going to play with a shot clock, 24 seconds, for the first time after Christmas. Any tips on that?
Get the ball up the floor quickly, because you're not going to have much time after you get into the forecourt.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want to walk it down. That's probably the biggest difference between international basketball and basketball here.
I would also say, too, that teach your players how to just play, too, not just how to run off of plays. Because if they're able to go out there and maybe things break down or they get into a position where they don't know where things are going to go, if they're able to just play and they know how to have a kind of how to make things work when there isn't a set going, then that's really going to help as well. Okay, last question. Let's see. This one is from... Well, actually, I'm going to answer people that are asking questions about vertical jump and jumping and athleticism and all that. Go check out our vertical jump series on, we have videos. The vertical jump handbook is also associated with that. So go check that out. That has all the answers to all that stuff. This one is from, let's see, I just saw it. Jan Nisi Harrison, who says, how to practice game speed shots alone. Well,
Just got to do it.
you have to do one thing I would tell you to do is go check out Dennis Stanton's spin shooting workout drill. He does a lot of great stuff on that. That's Coach Dennis Stanton. We even had him on as a guest once. Then you need to also learn how to do just flipping the ball to yourself.
Sure.
So that's like catching the ball at the pass. And then learn to visualize playing against people and having that defender step in with you when even they're not even there. Visualization is really a very important key to that stuff. And, playing at game speed, game intensity with that defender. Okay. All right. So I think that's going to do it for us today, you guys. Thanks for all the questions.
Thanks, guys.
Make sure you're following us on everything Shot Science. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Google+, Facebook. We're always doing things, and Snapchat. So follow us on all that stuff. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We will see you guys again next week. I'm going to try to figure out how to turn off this this live stream because it's a different one than we're used to. And we'll see you guys next time. All right?
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Stop streaming.